In this video, I will talk about principal-agent problems and principal-agent relationships. I will introduce the concepts in general, and there will be a companion video in which I introduce the concepts in the context of business and also connect them to the prior literature on organization theory, in particular Mintzberg's coordination mechanisms. Let's first, in this video, focus on principal-agent problems in general. A principal-agent relationship arises as soon as someone gives a task to someone else. The person who receives the task is called the agent, and the person who gives the task is called the principal. And mind how you write this term, principal. A principal-agent problem exists, for example, in companies when a supervisor or a manager assigns a task to a staff member, to an employee. It also exists when for example, a voter votes a politician into a parliament or to become president. But a principal-agent relationship also exists quite simply when you send one of your kids off to do some groceries for you. In order to have a principal-agent problem, we need to satisfy two further conditions, and they both need to be true. First, the person who gets the task needs to have objectives other than the ones that the principal has in mind. So the relationship between the person giving the task and the person receiving the task becomes problematic when the person who receives the task actually wants to do something else. Suppose you send off your kids to the supermarket store to get some fruits and vegetables, but they would rather want to buy candy. Or if you ask one of your staff members to record knowledge clips for students, but he prefers to spend the day sleeping in his desk chair, then that is also a principal-agent problem. When politicians are voted to represent the voters' views in Parliament, but they rather want to be re-elected, then that is potentially a source of friction in the principal-agent relationship. So when agents want something else than the principal, then that might constitute a principal-agent problem. The second condition that needs to be met is that the agent has superior information about how the task should be performed. And that is often the case. You send a politician to Parliament to represent your ideas because you think that he's better able to do this than you are. You ask a staff member to perform a particular task because he has superior knowledge as to how this task should be performed. For quite a number of these tasks, if you as a principal would have the same knowledge as the agent, you might as well perform the task yourself. And we need both of these conditions, so the superior information with the agent, as well as the different objectives of the principal and the agent. Both of these need to be present in order to transform a principal-agent relationship into a principal-agent problem. And you can see why this is the case if you imagine that one of the two does not apply. So suppose first that the agent has superior information as to how the task should be performed, but he has the same objectives as the principal. If that is the case, then the agent will use the superior information to perform the task exactly as the principal had in mind. So he will use the superior information to realize the same objectives that the principal had in mind. So there's no problem in this relationship. Suppose on the other hand, that there is a difference in objectives, but there is no superior information. Then the agent would not be able to use his task to his own benefit. The principal would easily be able to check the performance of the agent, so there will be no room for the agent to realize his own objectives. If you send your kids to the supermarket to buy fruits and they come home with candy, you've quite quickly figured out that they've bought the wrong groceries for you. Then if you get to solutions, in terms of mechanisms, that's kind of taking away either of the two conditions, because that would then solve the problem. What you could do first is to ensure that he no longer has such an information advantage. And the way you could go about that is by monitoring, by controlling the performance of the employee. If you install spyware software on the computers of your staff members, you would quickly figure out that they have not been typing for quite some time. Hence, it's likely that he's asleep rather than shooting knowledge clips. So if you control staff members, if you monitor what they do, it is more difficult for them, at least, to behave opportunistically, so to perform the task in the way that the agent wants this rather than in the way that the principal had it in mind. So monitoring is one solution, monitoring or control is one solution to take away the information advantage of the agent and thereby reduce the risk that the agent will use his information advantage to strive for his personal objectives. Now, of course, this can never completely address the situation, because if the manager would totally control the work that the employee does, then in reality he's doing the work as the employee would be doing it. The second solution is to do something about the conflicting objectives, to ensure that the agent no longer prefers to perform an activity that is not in your interest. And one solution that economics has emphasized a lot is to tie the pay or the compensation that an agent gets for performing a task to the extent to which the task has been realized. If you send your kids to buy groceries and you tell them that you will only give them money to buy fruits or vegetables, and that whatever money they spend on candy needs to be paid back to you from their own pocket money, they will be less likely to pay to buy candy rather than fruits or vegetables. So bonus systems, at least according to the principal agent theory, bonus systems reduce the likelihood that agency relationships turn into principal agent problems, because the agent now directly bears all the consequences of his decisions, of his performing of the task. A third solution is bonding. In bonding, the agent engages in efforts to make it less likely that he or she will subsequently behave opportunistically. You may wonder why that is the case. So then, why would it be in the interest of the agent to restrict his own ability to behave in his own interest? And the reason is quite simple, actually. That the principal isn't stupid either, according to economic theory, at least. So when a principal assigns a task to an agent, he takes into account the possibility that the agent will behave opportunistically, and that may, if that risk is so difficult to address, so then the activity may not arise at all. And then a agent who may want to engage in this transaction may propose that he won't misbehave. Now, obviously, as a promise, that is not credible. But if something is at stake for the agent as well, then suddenly it may become not in the interest of the agent anymore to behave opportunistically. And this can take the form of, for example, guarantees, warranty systems, or reputations that are at stake. So if you go to a restaurant and you order a meal, then that is a principal-agent relationship. The cook knows better how to prepare a meal than you do, so he has superior information, and he may also have the interest to use cheaper ingredients to produce the meal, because that will be profitable for him. And obviously the principal wouldn't want that. So there's clearly a possibility for a principal-agent problem if you go to a restaurant. But then and that problem may be so severe that you don't want to go to a particular restaurant at all, because you might anticipate that you won't get a meal there that that will be tasty. But then the restaurant owner could say, "No, I'm not going to do that. Trust me, which you won't, why would you? But then if he says, for example, my reputation will be at stake, you're able to write negative reviews about me. Or if you don't like the meal, you can have your money back. Then these are bonding activities. These are activities of the agent to promise credibly to the principal that the principal-agent relationship will not turn into a principal-agent problem, that the agent will not behave opportunistically. So principal-agent relationships become principal-agent problems when the agent has superior information and when the agent has different objectives than the principal. You could do things to address the superior information, monitoring, controlling, and you could do something about the divergent interest. Think of bonus systems designed by the principal, or bonding activities initiated by the agent. One final and related issue is that of collective action. Quite often there are many principals involved in a principal-agent relationship. Think of hundreds of thousands of voters who voted one member of parliament into office. So if each and every voter would have to check all the activities of the agent, of the member of parliament, then that would be very costly for this single principal. So he rather relies on all the other principals to check the behavior of the member of parliament for him, because he will also benefit from the corrective action that comes from that. But this applies to all of these voters alike. So all voters will rely on the efforts of other voters, and hence not a single voter will engage in monitoring activity. So in the case that there are many principals involved in a principal-agent relationship, it is likely that monitoring will be suboptimal. That monitoring by the principals themselves will not be sufficient. And this applies in the context of politicians as an agent of many voters, but also, for example, managers as an agent of many owners in the company. Now that we've talked about the introductory concepts in principal-agent theory, I'd like to invite you to continue to watch the companion video, which discusses these ideas in more depth in the context of business enterprises.